Three, two, one, go.
And welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. Gary Stein has the night off tonight. So instead, I've got the brilliant mind of one Ken Zalis, and we're going to break down the Ravens draft of 2022 and 2023, plus incorporate a big trade they made last season in discussing what's going to take place a week from tonight. But first, I got to tell you that the Costas Inn always brings you these Zooms called Press Box Live that we do Monday nights with Ross Grimsley and normally on Thursday night with G. Stein. But he's got the night off, as I said. And we also are brought to you tonight by AJ Michaels, expert and award-winning AJ Michaels heating, AC plumbing, and home performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast, and boy, is it ever going to be 90 degrees tomorrow. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. And I can't impress upon you how quickly the hot weather is here. So you got to get your AC checked out for the summer ahead. Ken Zalis is with us, and he always has us his AC checked out. Ken, how are you? It's been a while since we've talked.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. I'm doing well. So, didn't think I would be back so quick doing draft stuff with you, but it is what it is. And
well, you gave us a terrific guide. Tell us about your relationship with Mr. Serpico.
Joe and I have been friends online for a long time, and we were in a lot of the we're all competitors in the media, but we're all friends too. And we had a like 10-12 person draft chat that was going on for like 3 years, and we all became good friends, and we would talk about it. And when it came time for me to kind of take a step back for what turned out to be a year, Joe's one of the first people that I thought about, because first of all, as you've all come to recognize, just so passionate about the NFL and the draft, and has a terrific mind, and I thought it would be a perfect fit. And he's done great stuff. I read all the time, and I retweet all the time everything he puts out there. So happy to once again share the quote unquote media space with him.
So let me ask you this. You and I, again, we haven't talked during this entire football season. I don't know how that happened, but it just did. We were doing our different things. So I've never gotten your take on the Lamar situation. Where do you stand with that? And has it impacted the normal buzz around the draft in Baltimore? I don't find people as excited or passionate about talking about the team right now.
I think it's been a distraction, if nothing else, from everything. I mean, you have a larger than life figure, and somebody that is, anything they do in the draft is going to be, but, do they have their quarterback of the future? And, that's a big but. And, so yeah, it's probably, I think there's some fatigue that's come into play at this point. I know I'm fatigued of discussing it and all the different ways that it's twisted and turned as we go. And, now you have the draft, and it's still like, they got Odell Beckham Jr., a very, very un-Raven-like move, especially for the contract that they gave him. I mean, signing a 30-year-old plus wide receiver isn't new to the Ravens. Paying them top money, the largest contract of any free agent quarterback on a 1-year deal, is just unprecedented from the Ravens. And
it certainly changed the meaning of right player, right price.
yes, it certainly changed that. But even through all that, and I know what everybody says, and you thought that there would be some positive movement with Lamar because all the social media stuff with him and OBJ at the party afterwards, and even beforehand with the little FaceTime thing, and it really hasn't moved the needle. And there's all these reports, and Lamar, if you believe certain people who usually are pretty connected, Lamar said go get Hopkins and OBJ, and then we'll talk. And like that's putting the Ravens in an impossible place. And
Right.
then the Hurts contract came out, and it's depending on which year you look at it, it was either a little bit better or not as good as what the Ravens offered Lamar, and Lamar turned down. And it's just I don't know where it's going to go. But I'm fatigued with it. And
Yeah,
no matter what they do in the draft, it's hanging over their head.
Yeah.
They don't right now, OTAs or whatever off-season practices are going to start. Anthony Brown's your quarterback. Like that's the reality. Huntley isn't even signed. This is where the Ravens are. It's like, do you believe? I know at Glenn Clark Radio they have the meter, which is great fun. I think it's at 95% at this point that they believe that Lamar Jackson will be the quarterback for week 1 of the Baltimore Ravens. But they have a new offensive coordinator. They have a new wide receiver. They're going to have new draft picks. He's got to learn it's not good enough for him to be there week 1. He's got to be there now, start learning the offense, start throwing to some of these guys that, are going to be in different spots on the field, we assume, than what he's been used to. And it's just tough. I tweeted out something. I said, offer the man $1 more than Hurts. If he turns it down, let's move on. Shake hands, part friends, and start to rebuild your team with a different quarterback. And I hate
I
to
don't
say
know
that.
I don't know how you do that though. That's the part that's so tricky.
Well, you trade them for pennies
If there
on
was
the
a
dollar.
button that we could push tomorrow and have,
I mean, that's the way you do it. I mean, you just at some point, and everybody's been very nice. Lamar's been very nice
Right.
as far as not saying anything mean or derogatory about the organization. The organization hasn't said anything but we want Lamar Jackson here long term. It's been very cordial, except that they don't have a contract, and it's a tough off season because of it. And anything they do in the upcoming draft is going to have that but associated with it.
So let's, and something, if you had been Gary Stein sitting here or Glenn Clark tonight, I wouldn't even have asked you. I haven't talked to you about this. So we talked for a few minutes about it. Let's talk about the 23 draft, but before we do that, Ken, if we could, the 22 draft and the 22 season have to be judged along with this, doesn't it? A little bit?
I mean, a little bit. Again, I mean, if you look, let's just talk about the draft last year, and we could just go through.
They had like 11 picks.
They had like 11 picks, and I'm not going to bore everybody. But their first round pick, Linderbaum, I mean, that's a hit. I mean, there's no two ways about that. They needed a center. He looks like a guy that's kind of came in and solidified that position for maybe 10 years. Then you go in the second round and you take Ojabo.
You didn't mention Hamilton. You didn't mention Hamilton. Do you like Hamilton?
Well, Hamilton's the first pick. He's a home run for sure.
Gotcha, okay.
They get. I gloss over that because that was such an obvious Ravens pick, and just, I mean, he's good.
He's real good.
He's real good. He's just going to get better. You get Linderman. I mean, right there. I mean, if you did nothing else in the draft, most people would say, hey, I mean, you get 2 guys that are going to start for your team for at least the next 5 to 10 years. That's a great draft. And then you add a guy and we'll see what it really is. But David Ojabo would have been a top 15, 20 pick without the injury if he had not torn his Achilles at his pro day. And now you have him hopefully healthy and back. You saw a little glimpse of him. You can see, we'll see what having him opposite Owe means this year. But you continue along and get just a absolute steal in the third round of Travis Jones, who the Ravens can't speak of, more positively, and the loss of Calais Campbell and having a guy like Travis Jones walk right in is terrific. And we'll see what an offensive tackle, that's 6'8" and 380 Falale could do. And everybody likes Charlie Kolar, who had some injury histories. You got your punter of the future, Isaiah Likely, in the fourth round. Looks like an absolute monster steal with what we looked at.
All right. So it was a good solid draft last
It's a
year.
good solid draft, and to another year from now, we may be talking about it like one of the best drafts outside of the first draft that the Ravens had, as one of their best drafts ever, if Ojabo is what we think he's going to be.
So is it fair in a season now this year where we've got 5 picks a week from the draft, and we all know, and by the way, Eric, at the draft luncheon, which you weren't at this year, I asked the question, do you anticipate you will have more than 5 picks when the action starts? And he said, it's a pretty good bet. In our history here, we've done it. So is it fair to almost judge this year's draft as if Ojabo, I know that's not kosher, but is he like a draft pick for this year because you doubted you weren't going to get him anything major out of him last year?
Yeah, but all the same, you couldn't have gotten him this year. So I don't think you can do that. I think when the draft is over, whether they select 4, 5, 6, 7, however it shakes out, you have to remember the name Roquan Smith. I know he's not a draft pick, but they gave up the second rounder for him. That's all part of this equation. You added a 25-year-old best linebacker in football who instantaneously changed your defense last year. I think that's all got to be part of the narrative,
the equation,
when this draft is over. Whatever they do, however many people they bring in, it has to be. But they also added Roquan Smith.
That's
so I just think that
fair. That's fair, and more kosher than what I'm trying to do with the job, though.
Yeah, probably a little bit. I don't want. It's tough to take a. You did draft him last year. I mean, you weren't. I mean, and he did play. He played at the end of the year a little bit, and I just think that that's a situation where, because they had so many picks last year, that's like, okay, well, we can afford to do this because we still have, after we take Ojabo, we still have 8 picks left, so they were able to manipulate if they wanted to, and they kind of stayed put the rest of the way. But if there was somebody there in the third round, they could have packaged a couple of fourth rounders, come up and gotten that person. So I think it's a luxury pick last year because of the volume of picks that you had. This year, I don't think you can push him into this year as saying that it's great that we're going to get a full year out of him. And I hope it helps.
No, but your way of adding Roquan Smith into the equation is factually correct, that he's part of this haul.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you don't. I mean, that's what the second, when you say, I wish they had a second round pick. Well, he's your best defensive player. So yeah, you have.
So how does Eric DaCosta, do you anticipate that he is going to trade some player or players that are on the current roster, say a Patrick Queen, is that how he's going to obtain a couple more picks? Or is it going to be trading future picks to get picks this week, next week?
Well, I think if you shot him with truth serum,
Yeah.
ideally what he'd like to do is get out of 22, trade back, whether that's back in the first round or back out of the first round entirely, and get more picks that way. That's the least painful way to do it in this year's draft. Yeah, I mean, look, the Patrick Queen thing is another thing. Are they picking up the fifth year option? If they're not, it doesn't mean they have to trade him.
Right.
I thought Patrick Queen played pretty well once Roquan Smith
No
showed
question
up.
about that.
So I know Patrick Queen gets a raw deal. He may be the second most polarizing player that the Ravens have on their roster. It doesn't seem like there's, because of where they drafted him, it's like, you expect so much out of him, but he actually played really, really well once Roquan Smith
No
came
question
in and
about it.
controlled the center, and you allowed him to get after the quarterback a little bit more, which I think is one of his best assets. So, could they trade Queen for a second round pick? Sure, they could. Could they trade him for a 2 and a 4? Sure, they could. Could they trade other players? We've already seen them willing to do that with Chuck Clark. Granted, it was a next year late pick, but they're not afraid to trade players. I just don't know that they have that many players that they're ready to give up on that'll bring them.
I mentioned Ken, I
Yeah.
mentioned Queen because of the money factor too. Do
Yeah.
they need to shed a player like him to free up a little cap space?
They don't need to.
Okay.
They don't need to. They have a lot of ammunition. I know they don't. I know the Ravens don't publicly always say they don't like to restructure contracts, but history says they restructure contracts, and they have about 4 or 5 players on their current roster that they could. I think the number I have heard, if they would restructure those that are eligible for it, I mean, they could free up $26 million
Okay.
if they had to. So
Okay.
I don't think that they have to because of the money. Now, maybe if they can get the right deal, and you think ahead that, okay, well, if we don't pick up his fifth year option and he has another really good year like he had to finish out the year, last year, are we going to be able to re-sign him for what he's going to go on the market? And the answer is probably no. So then you try to get ahead of that and you say, okay, well, since we're not going to do this, our best option, even though we really like the player, we're looking at the other people that we're going to have to re-sign. We're hoping
to move them.
that a long-term Lamar contract, again, it all goes back to the Lamar contract. Hopefully a long-term Lamar contract is going to be part of this. And so we have to save money for that and other things, other guys are going to be coming up faster than we think. All of a sudden somebody's been here for 4 years, and if they weren't a first round pick, guess what? You have to re-sign them to keep them. And to go back to the draft again, it's not like you have 10 picks to restock this year. You only have 5 right now. So so I think there's some things that they could do, but I think, truth be told, they would love to trade down. I mean, I'm going to say it out loud. There's a lot of players in this draft I really, really like. It's not a deep draft overall. You and I have been at the conferences, and the question always comes up in every quote unquote liar's lunch. And I think it's the only honest answer we ever get. Those things. How many draftable players do you have on your board right now? And I seem to remember the number is always somewhere between 180 and 200 people. Some years it's a little lower, some years it's a little higher. You have general managers around the league. I believe today the Jacksonville general manager came out and said we only have 150 draftable players on our board. And I don't think that that's a unique position this year. I don't think it's a deep draft. I think there are a lot of solid players. The Ravens will find solid players with their first, third, and fourth round picks. But after that, I think your 6th and 7th round picks, I think you're just going for need. And trusting your scouting department, because I don't know that it's that great of a draft where, guys in this year's draft certainly wouldn't have been drafted last year.
Does Beckham, the signing of Odell Beckham, change any of the focus on potentially drafting another number one receiver? And I've seen boards. I saw the Todd McShay and Mel Kiper
Right.
alternating picks draft, and they had the Steelers just in front of us taking Zay Flowers, who had been for months rumored by Mel that he was coming to Baltimore.
Yeah, I think the wide receivers are wild in this draft because it's like I hate to use this analogy, but it's like ice cream flavors. Everybody has their favorite.
Mhm.
It's not like outside of Quentin Johnson, none of these guys are these 6'2", 200-pound guys. I mean, you look at the guy that I really like is Addison out of USC. Okay. And you look at a guy like Addison, he's 5'11", 173. The top wide receiver in this draft, Jackson Smith out of Ohio State, 6 foot 196. I just, Zay Flowers, he's 5'9", 180.
Yeah.
I love his game. I don't know it's really tough. And all of this is even tougher because of the new offensive coordinator. We think we know what the offense is going to look like. And I love Zay. If they draft Zay Flowers, everybody should be happy. Okay. I don't think the Odell Beckham Jr. stops them from looking at wide receiver. What I think stops them from looking at wide receiver is some of the depth that it's available, I think is going to be available in the third round of this draft. Guys like Jaden Reed, Jonathan Mingo, possibly out of Ole Miss, Trey Palmer out in Nebraska, guys that have a little bit more size, a little bit more weight to them, maybe are better outside options than someone like a Zay Flowers. And I know there's been some comparisons to Steve Smith with Zay Flowers. That's tough. I mean, Steve Smith is one of the most unique wide receivers ever to come into the NFL. Not only the fact that his size and he was able to play outside, but just his toughness that he brought to the position. It's tough to make analogies like that.
The heart that he had. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no bigger heart in the NFL than of ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I just and the attacking of the ball. I mean, there are guys that are 6'4" you wish would attack the ball, like Steve Smith did. And they just don't. So I think there's some guys that they could go in the third round, and I don't know. And we always talk wide receiver for the Ravens. I don't remember a draft that we're not talking wide receiver in the first round. Since I've been doing this a long time.
I've got nothing but gray. I've got nothing but gray hair now, Ken. I got nothing but gray hair, and we've been talking about it since I had a full head of hair.
Yeah, I mean, but I actually think they have bigger fish to fry in this draft, and it's all going to be how the board's constructed. Cornerback is a glaring, huge, massive hole.
And is that one of the deepest positions on the, out of?
I think it's very top heavy.
The field. If you had one position to say, there's a heck of a lot of bump. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is. I think you can get a good cornerback anywhere from the first to the third round. The difference is, I think you can get a really, really special one in the first round this year, especially around where the Ravens are picking. And we've all heard the names at this point. Deonte Banks from Maryland, Joey Porter, is a guy from Penn State. I love the kid Ringo from Georgia. I look at him and he's the prototypical size, speed type cornerback, 6'1", 210 pounds, can run.
What's the chance he'll be there, Ken? Lingo.
I think there's a chance. I think Banks, Ringo, Cam Smith, one of those three guys is there.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with any of them, to be quite honest. Ringo and Cam Smith are prototypical SEC type players that the Ravens seem to kind of draft recently. So I'd be happy with any of them. One of those three will be there. I think if all three are on the board, Eric would love to get to trade down and see what he can do. The problem with trading down, I think that there's a very limited number of players in this draft available that
Okay.
teams are going to want to jump up for. The one that I keep coming up with is the quarterback out of Tennessee, Hooker. Like, and it reminds, he's coming off the injury. Without the injury, I think he's in the conversation as the second or third quarterback
taken.
this draft. So everything's going in that direction, but the way with the fifth year options and the way salaries are, I think he's going to go in the first round. I can't find a spot for him yet. But he will be in the first round in my final mock, which will come out next Wednesday night. In my final mock, he's going to be in it because of that fifth year thing. And it reminds me way back when the Ravens took Lamar Jackson, and there was this whole thing between Glenn and I. It's like, well, you didn't have to come back in the first round to get Lamar Jackson. You could have taken him at the top of the second round, and you didn't have to give up as much. And I remember arguing with him. I said, yeah, but the fifth year. I said, that's for a quarterback, that savings is just crazy compared to what these contracts are going by now. So I think that's very valuable. And I think that Hooker's the type of guy. And if you look at where the Ravens are, and Glenn and I talked about this on his show the other day, I think teams, I don't know if Minnesota is going to take a quarterback, but Minnesota needs to be looking to the future beyond Kirk Cousins. Minnesota is a team that's sitting in the mid-20s that I think teams would want to get ahead of if they were interested in Hooker there, because of the fear that Minnesota may take him at 25. So in that aspect, I think the Ravens are in a good spot. We'll see how that materializes.
Just want to ask you, and I asked this question of Eric and Joe at the luncheon 10 days ago or so. You've been around long enough to know that the Ravens, and for the most part, I'm qualifying my question. For the most part, they've always thumbed their nose at the University of Maryland.
They have.
I think it's one of the reasons they were never interested in Stephon Diggs. What's a DJ Moore? I think they just had like this, and he's Maryland. I detect that Maryland under Mike Locksley now has gotten the attention of the Baltimore Ravens. They know he's getting pro athletes there now.
Yeah, I mean, there's more. He's definitely sending guys to the NFL. At a nice rate. Yep. He's got some kids this year that are going to get drafted. Probably both of the cornerbacks, Banks for sure, who I can't see not being a first round pick.
Yeah.
Bennett's going to get selected in this draft. The wide receiver, Jarrett's going to get selected in this draft. Like, he's going to put guys in the draft. I mean, into the league. I'll say this. I don't, I think he's gotten the attention because I think Banks was one of their 30 visits this year. I believe I read that somewhere. So yeah, they've gotten the attention. I don't think they steer away from the University of Maryland. I just think that you look at if let's say Ringo from Georgia, and it's coming down to Ringo and Banks for them, and they have them close on their board. They're going for the SEC kid.
They're going for the SEC guy. And my point is that Locksley is now getting some players in that conversation.
Right. He is.
But I think they feel safer taking the SEC guy.
Yeah, I just it's the way they've drafted, and I look, it's not a whole thing. It used to be a whole thing with
bias,
just
I think.
Alabama.
The bias is that you get great players out of it. Yeah.
It used to be,
yep,
the running
yep.
joke was, if there's a first round grade on a kid from Alabama, the Ravens are going to find a way
Right,
to
right,
draft them.
right.
I mean, you have that, but they're just going to draft good football players and players that they have seen on tape go against other NFL guys and
Right.
do well. And I think, and again, look, Banks tested off the charts. If you believe in these things called RAS, relative athletic scores, and what they do is they compare your athletic score of how you test compared to every other draftable cornerback who's ever been drafted. I mean, he's in the top 5% in the history of the NFL. So the testing is there. I think where you look, the tape is good. It's not great. And when I say it's not great, it's like you don't see this. He can cover, he can run. You don't see the ball hawking skills that you may with if you turned on the tape for Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State, who's in that realm. I think he's too light for the NFL because he's 160 pounds soaking wet, but he's always around the ball and he's always making plays. And he's always getting his hands on the ball. So I don't see that same thing with Banks, but I see a really good cover guy. So I think you're fine there if that's the pick. Ringo, Cam, any of those first round guys. The only guy I knocked down a little bit, I just worry about his size, is Forbes. I don't know how much weight you're going to be able to put on that frame. But he's 6'1", I mean, he's 6 feet tall, but he's 165 pounds. That's a tough sell for me.
KC, let me just tell folks out there about the Costas Inn and then we'll wrap up, okay? The Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. This time of year, a lot of you have gotten your appetite whetted for steamed crabs. Well, it's basically that time of year where you want them and you want them bad. You got to call the Costas Inn at 410-477-1975 well in advance, 2-3 days in advance, and make sure you reserve your crabs. It's like going away for a little mini vacation at the Costas Inn. They've got the best steamed crabs around. Go to the Costas Inn. Go online, check out their menu. You can carry out and pay for it online, whether it's crabs or something else. Costas Inn, one of your best choices for dining in the area, no question about it. One of the best choices to talk about the draft is Ken Zalis. And KC, before as we wrap things up, would you say that cornerback is, if the Ravens draft in round 1 or trade out, do you think their eye is on cornerback first?
Every time I say this, they never go in my direction. But I think they have to. I think you have to. I think I get the wide receiver room isn't as bad as everybody thinks it is. I mean, people forget that I've already forgotten they signed Nelson Aguilar. He's not even brought up. They still have Bateman that's going to be healthy. You have you have Beckham. You still have some guys on the roster.
Duvernay.
Yeah, you got Duvernay.
Receiver.
People forget about him. Prochet's still there. We'll see what happens with some of these things. But it's not like the cupboard is bare at wide receiver. And let's be honest, they ran a high school offense for 4 years. So you don't know what these wide receivers can do in a real wide open NFL style offense. And I think that's what you're going to get. And the same thing for Lamar. I want Lamar to sign because I want to see him in a real offense.
Yeah,
and
it would be nice to see.
I want to see him in the offense. He ran a pro style offense at Louisville, and he threw and ran. And it wasn't just about the running. You feared him. I want to see that team again. So, but cornerback is a massive hole right now. They don't have a CB2 right now on their roster, in my opinion, that's ready to be another shutdown guy like Humphrey was.
All right. And offensive line, do you think they're okay, or are they always looking to add one guy somewhere along the line there?
I think they're okay, but I think you're still there are 2 positions, there are 3 positions I would draft every single year if I was the Ravens. offensive line, cornerback, and wide receiver. I want guys every year in those positions. I think they're just so important to and I throw in defensive line, but they're really good at that, so I never worry about that. They're the best in the league at finding defensive tackles in the 4th, 5th round. So I never worry about that. But you can never have enough good corners. We've seen injuries over the years and things like that. You can't have enough good offensive linemen. Same thing. We love Ronnie Stanley. He's not the picture of health. We watch him with bated breath every single week, and when he's out there, he's one of the 5 best in the league. You just hope that he's out there for 17 games now. But and they lost some free agents. They lost a free agent on the offensive line, so there's a need for maybe to add a guard somewhere in this draft. I don't think it's the first round. It's not the biggest need. I lean the cornerback, and probably number 2 is wide receiver for me.
Let me ask you the $64,000 question. That's back in the days when 64,000 was a lot of money. So this is the $1 million question. Is there somebody out there? You've mentioned this quarterback from Tennessee, Hooker, but is there somebody else out there that's more like in the 3rd or 4th round that you think is worth a flyer
as a
quarterback that could somehow be at quarterback?
Yeah, I gotcha.
If the answer is no, it's no.
I mean, there's some kids I like. I don't know if he's a 3rd round kid, a 4th round kid. Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, I really, really like. Maybe in the 6th round, if they want to take a shot at Clayton Tune out of Houston, I like this kid's tape. He can throw the football.
Okay.
And then there's a really intriguing prospect out of UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Is he a 5th round guy? Is he a 6th round guy? I mean, you're these aren't guys that you're saying are going to start for me day one, but
right.
Could one of them turn into be a Sam Howell? Could one of them turn into be and we'll see what
How about the next Tom Brady? How about the next Tom Brady?
Could it be the next Tom Brady? But could it be a guy that can come in and grow into the position? The issue, and we're going to finish this the way we started it. The issue is, what are they doing at quarterback? And is Lamar here day one? And do they have a full off season? But there's some guy, Clayton Tune. I'm gonna say his name twice. Clayton Tune's the guy that if I'm taking a flyer on late in the draft, 4th, 5th round, he's my guy. He is. He's got the size at 6'2" and a half.
Okay.
He's 220. He's got the arm strength. I really like him if they're going to go in that direction.
Got one last question. He certainly won't fall to the Ravens next year. How much do you like the quarterback at USC, Caleb Williams?
I like him enough that if they don't sign Lamar, I tank the season and make sure I get the number 1 overall pick. How's that? how's that for liking him? I mean, he would be the number 1.
I like him a lot too. And
yeah, he would be the number 1. He would be the number 1 draft pick this year. He
no
far and above,
above
the number 1 draft pick if he was out this year.
Hey, I appreciate your coming on and doing this with me. All right.
Yeah. Anytime, my friend. Anytime.
You always make whatever show I'm on much smarter by being on it. All right, KZ. Hope you and your family are well, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
All right. That's Ken Zalis, and we have been brought to you by, of course, the Costas Inn out at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and also our friends at AJ Michaels. Expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, AC Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. AC season is coming up fast. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. For Ken Zalis, I'm Stan the Fan. See you Monday night with Gary Stein. We'll be seeing you then. Bye. With Ross Grimsley.